sex. We've been doing it the same way for a long time. Ever wonder what it would be like to have sex with a robot? While we may just find out what robot love is like in a few years, men have been trying to create artificial women since at least the 17th century. Fast forward to the 20th century, and this plastic head represents the pinnacle of sex doll manufacturing in the 1970s. This is 2015's pinnacle of sex doll manufacturing. This super realistic sex doll has a fully articulating skeleton and all the right parts, each of which is very realistic. Dolls like these cost between $5,000 and $10,000. However, they weren't the first. Way back in 1908, pioneering sexologist Iwan Bloch claimed in his book, The Sexual Life of Our Time, that in Paris there existed an underground trade in highly realistic sex dolls. The dolls were made out of rubber and early plastics. Bloch reported that these dolls took 3 months to make. They were fully articulating, orifaced, and each cost 3,000 francs. These Parisian dolls sound a lot like today's realistic sex dolls. Unfortunately, no images exist of these early but sophisticated playmates. Bloch also wrote about an early sex doll used by French and Spanish sailors called a dame de voyage. These sewn-together pleasure thingies were made from rags and clothes and stuffed with cotton or hay or whatever else was around. A few centuries before Bloch's book, the philosopher René Descartes was reported to have traveled with his own sex doll, and a fairly sophisticated one for the 17th century. It is said to have been made from leather and metal. Descartes lost the doll while sailing to Sweden. The sailors on his ship were so disgusted by the doll, and that Descartes referred to it as his daughter, that they threw it overboard. By the 1970s, sex dolls were no longer a part of an underground economy in the West and were widely advertised in men's magazines. These ads portray real women with only a mention of the life-size sex doll, which, at a cost of around $10, what you got was about as realistic as a punching bag clown. The story of another fully articulating sex doll from the past comes from Nazi Germany, based on these two images which supposedly were found in a trash can, and a journalist no one ever heard of or remembers. The Nazi government were to build realistic sex dolls for soldiers. The project, which was called the Borghild Project, never got off the ground into full production. One of the reasons it never got beyond the beta stage was that the factories were destroyed in the bombing of Dresden. Claims have recently been made that the Borghild Project was a hoax. While evidence is scant, it seems possible that the project had existed. One reason would have been the high rates of syphilis among soldiers in occupied Paris. Several memos between high-level officials describe syphilis as such a widespread problem that it threatened the ability to maintain order. One of the weirdest and most offensive uses of sex doll parts was this trophy marketed through men's magazines. Yes, that is the plastic head of a woman on a plaque to be hung on a wall next to the deer and the antelope. The trophy head could be purchased as a blonde, brunette, or redhead. That's the end of this episode of Sex a History. Join us again as we delve into our past to show that though laws, attitudes, and emphases change, once we're in the bedroom, we've been doing it the same way for a long time. Check out our G+ page for frequent updates with images, videos, and news from our collective sexual past.